בודקת מה עם אבא שלי? כי הוא צריך להעביר תכלס.
אוקיי.
Hi, good evening everyone, and welcome to the amazing series of virtual tours that we're having for Olam Shalem. Tonight we are outside the Jaffa Gate, so welcome. This theme tonight is about Pesach, so we're doing this in honor of the Chag Pesach. My name is Eve Cohen, so welcome everyone. I'm so glad that you could join us tonight. Just a few thank yous before we start. Just thank to Reshit Yerushalayim, the home of Olam Shalem, JNF, USA and Canada, welcome. Kakal, the Department for the Empowerment of Educators in the Diaspora, thank you. The Lifshitz Foundation, Jerusalem Office of Heritage, Jerusalem Development Authority, the Ministry of the Diaspora, United, of course, Hefziba, Ministry of Education, and last but not least, Jewish Interactive. You'll be able to find their app, which is a digital game, and this will be linked to the video that we will show called the Afikomen, and this will appear at the beginning of the training at the end of the virtual tour. So let's begin. I'll just introduce you to our wonderful guide, Yishai, and he will take it from here. Enjoy the tour.
Thank you very much, Eve. As Eve said, my name is Yishai Salomon. I live here in Jerusalem. I was born here in Jerusalem, and I'm happy to be with you tonight. We have a beautiful night, beautiful weather, and we're going to have a few tastes and bits of Jerusalem, trying to understand the story of Jerusalem and seeing how it connects to our life today and to Pesach just ahead of us. Now, we started the tour over here when the walls of the old city of Jerusalem are just behind me. You can see the walls surrounding the old city, and you can see Zion Gate. Jaffa Gate is just next to us, and Jaffa Gate, Zion Gate are two gates out of the 8 gates that are surrounding the city. Now, the name Zion Gate is, of course, one of the names of Jerusalem. Jerusalem has 70 names. If you wish, you can actually go and meet Jerusalem 70 times in 70 different ways. Every Chag, every holiday has its own view on Jerusalem. Every day has a different view of Jerusalem. And the name Zion was taken from the main mountain of Jerusalem that we're going to see at the end of this tour, Mount Moriah, the Temple Mount, just beneath us in the Jewish quarter. So the name came over here to this mountain, Mount Zion. The gate, Zion Gate, is taking us into the old city. And if we go to the other side, what we're going to do in a moment, we're actually going to go into the center of Mount Zion, into the tomb of King David. So join us. We're going to start walking towards the tomb of King David. When we'll get there, we'll explain a bit about the figure of King David and the connection to Jerusalem and to the mountain.
שלום לכל המורים השותפים בפרויקט החינוכי של עולם שלם. אני מברך אתכם על הצטרפותכם לסיור בסמטאותיה של ירושלים העתיקה לקראת חג הפסח. בעוד שבועות אחדים נשב כולנו לשולחן הסדר עם ילדינו, משפחותינו וקהילותינו, ונעביר מדור לדור את מורשת הדורות. אני מברך אתכם, המורים שבתפוצות, שבזכות עבודתכם המסורה, ילדי עם ישראל חווים את הקשר לארץ ישראל ולעם ישראל. זה ממש בזכותכם. נסיים במילים שכתובות בהגדה, לשנה הבאה בירושלים הבנויה.
Hello everyone and welcome to the training of Olam Shalem in Keren Kayemet Israel. My name is Shlomo Ben Chaim. I'm the head of the Overseas Education Department of the JNF of Keren Kayemet Israel. I'm very happy to welcome you here for this amazing training about Jerusalem. You're going to wander around the streets. You're going to meet people of Jerusalem, and you should not forget that we're here in Jerusalem because we have a state, a Jewish state that allowed us to go and visit that beautiful city, our capital. And the fact that we have a Jewish state is of course because of the effort of the JNF in the last 120 years to purchase the land, to establish communities, and to make sure that there is a place for the Jewish people to be, and that's how the state of Israel was created. So I welcome you here in that amazing training to learn about Jerusalem. I would like also to thank Zohar, Ifat, and Ruth that's working with us there in the United States, Canada, and England. that help us to bring you to that amazing training. And I wish, of course, to all of you to come and join us here in Israel. Very soon you will meet some of our young educators that will come to your place to run some activities about Yom Ha'atzmaut. And we are welcoming you here in July to come and participate in our teacher training here in Israel of the JNF Keren Kayemet L'Israel. I'm wishing you a Chag Sameach v'Kasher, and לשנה הזאת בירושלים הבנויה. Thank you.
Hi, we're standing in the entrance to the tomb of King David. You can see the entrance just behind me. And this building is a very interesting building. They used to say that if an astronaut would have come to Jerusalem and wanted to understand how difficult and special this city is, you would have taken him here to Mount Zion, to the tomb of King David, because the lower part of the building is a synagogue. The upper part is the room of the Last Supper. The same room was also a mosque years ago. And here we have in one building the three religions of Jerusalem: Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. And you can understand a bit of the complicity of this city that we know. Now, all of the religions connect on one mountain because one figure is buried over here, and that's King David, the king that established Jerusalem, that stays with us for the last 3,000 years. And the question is King David actually buried over here? Why is it even a question? Because we have a very old tradition that takes us back more than 1,000 years, a written tradition that King David is buried on Mount Zion, where we're standing just now. But if we open up the Bible and we read in the Bible, we can see that King David was buried in the city of David. And the city of David is actually located on the slopes of Mount Zion, 10 minutes walk down below. So we have a bit of a difficulty, and there's a few answers. One of the answers is that maybe the city of David isn't just the city itself, but also the areas around the city. But anywhere we have here a cave, we have the ancient tradition, and thousands of people that come here to pray and read out of the book of Psalms that was written by King David. Now King David didn't start as a king. He was born in Bethlehem, a city half an hour drive from Jerusalem, and he started as a shepherd, keeping his flock together, grew up to be a warrior fighting against Goliath, and then became the king of Israel. And he didn't start as the king of Israel, he actually started as the king of Judea. We all know the song David Melech Israel, but those days in the kindergarten, kids didn't sing David Melech Israel, they used to sing King David, the king of Judea, because he lived in an ancient city called Hebron. And after 7 years, King David understands that he wants to be the king of all of the tribes. He wants to actually connect everyone together to one family, to one big nation. And he leaves his own city, his force, his comfort zone, and comes here to a city that was conquered by the Jebusites. He conquers it from their hands, builds up Jerusalem, and since then, up to today, we have Jerusalem as a capital. Some of the years we actually sat in this capital, and many of the years we had to dream about Jerusalem as our city, but everything starts with King David just over here in the city of David. Now King David himself, as I said, was also a king and a warrior, but he also wrote the book of Psalms, and he also had his harp. And the ability of one person to be on one side a warrior and on the other side write songs that after 3,000 years you can actually connect them also with your mind and also with your heart, is something quite unique, something quite special. And if you wish, the man that created Jerusalem, King David, basically created it with his figure. A city that also has the physical part of it, the buildings, the streets, the history, the archaeology, but also has an upper meaning for it, a deeper meaning for it, if you wish, the spiritual meaning of Jerusalem. So that's the story of King David, and basically that's also the story of Jerusalem, Jerusalem that we yearn and speak about so many years. Now we're going to climb up the steps of the building to one of the most beautiful sites that we have of Jerusalem, and we'll see all of Jerusalem surrounding us. Join me and let's enter the tomb. Just before going in, I want to show you the last thing. You can see that there's a small door over here. This is a Sephardic synagogue, And if our cameraman will take us closer, we can see that the name of the synagogue is the Sephardic synagogue on Mount Zion that was built in the War of Independence, 1948. So this place was basically the only place that Israel had after the Independence War, 1948. The old city is in the hands of the Jordanians. There's at the end of the war, the city is cut up into half. One side is in the Israelis' hands, the other side is in the Jordanian hands, and the old city is some place that you can't get to. It's out of our reach. So this place was the closest place to the Temple Mount. That's why they built a synagogue over here, and that's also the connection of the rooftop that we're going to see in a moment. We're climbing up these ancient steps. The buildings around us date back 600 years, 1,000 years to the days of the Crusaders. And going up the steps, we're basically climbing up in history to see Jerusalem that is surrounding this mountain. Wow, that was a schlep. We just went up 3 stories. You can see I'm a bit breathless, but we're standing on a really beautiful overlook that can show us all of the surroundings of Jerusalem. So our cameraman can start down south. And what you're seeing down there ahead of us is one of the biggest mountains in this area. In Arabic it's called Jabal Mukaber. In Hebrew, Har Gadol. In English, the big mountain. And this big mountain is on the southern part of Jerusalem. Today we have different Jewish and Arab neighborhoods on this mountain. And if we go to the east, you can see the valley of Kidron going down to the sea, the Dead Sea, that is half an hour drive from Jerusalem. Follow me and we can also see Mount of Olives. So on the east of Jerusalem, modern Jerusalem and ancient Jerusalem, we had Mount of Olives, one of the highest mountains over here, with the big mountain that we just saw. And as we look at the mountain, we can see that most of the mountain is without any lights. It's quite dark. What you're actually seeing is a cemetery, the most ancient cemetery that the Jewish people have, dating back to the days of the first temple. So we have one of our prime ministers, Menachem Begin, buried over here. Over there we have the author Shai Agnon, and we also have ancient burial caves dating back to the first and second temple. Going to the northern part of the of this building, we can also see the Golden Dome. So follow me and we'll see the walls of the old city just ahead of us. And I'm reminding you that this, if we go back to the days between 1948 and 1967, this is the mountain when the Israelis used to stand to watch and see the old city, Mount of Olives, the Western Wall, places that were unreachable before the Six-Day War. Just ahead of us, I hope you can see, we can actually see the Golden Dome, or more correctly, the Dome of the Rock, and that's Mount Moriah, and we're standing on Mount Zion. So if we go back 3,000 years ago, King David is standing in the city of David, looking around him, and what he's seeing is the big mountain, Mount of Olives, Mount Moriah, and Mount of Zion. And he opened up the book of Psalms and he writes, Yerushalayim harim saviv la, veHashem saviv la'amo me'ata v'ad olam. Or in English, Jerusalem is surrounded with mountain as God is surrounding his people. Basically, Jerusalem hasn't changed. The buildings are new, the streets are new, but the topography is the same topography. And when we're standing on these mountains, we're actually standing on the same place where a third of the Bible was written. In the same book, we can also find a very known saying, by the rivers of Babylon, when we were crying, remembering Zion. The Jews that are leaving Jerusalem, living in Babylon those days, are crying and thinking about Jerusalem. And the word Zion, the name of Jerusalem, over the years became the name of the Zionist movement that brought the Jews back to this land and building up the land of Israel and the state of Israel as we know it today. Now, the state of Israel was born without any religious sites. The tomb of Joseph, the tomb of Rachel, Me'arat HaMachpelah, all of these places were in the hands of the Jordanians, including the Western Wall. When my father was 10 years old, he told me that he came on a visit to Jerusalem. I asked him, did you go to the Western Wall as kids do today? And he answered, no. There wasn't any wall when I was a kid. There was a physical wall, but we couldn't get there. So Israel was actually a state without any connection to the ancient sites that were written in the Bible. And this place, the Zion, Mount Zion and the tomb of King David became basically the Western Wall of those days. Bar mitzvah and bat mitzvah kids used to come up here, and also the President of Israel used to come over here. Just behind us we have a small room that was used by the second President of Israel, Ben Zvi. He used to come here on the holidays every few weeks to meet the people, because this was the place where pilgrims used to come. He wanted to see them face to face, so he used to come here and also connect between the state of Israel and the ancient part of Judaism, and that's the Old City and Mount Moriah. Last but not least, underneath this building, we have the first museum that was built to remember the Holocaust survivors. We all know Yad Vashem. You probably went to visit over there. But down below over here, we have another place that was built 4 years before Yad Vashem. Holocaust survivors that come to Israel want to build a big tomb, kind of a tomb for their families and congregations that they left back behind when they were murdered by the Nazis. And they look left and right, looking for a place that will be meaningful enough to connect the heritage of their families, and they find this place. And that's just beneath us. We have a small museum with a lot of tombstones and the names of different congregations that died in the Holocaust, were murdered in the Holocaust, and the place that they decided to commemorate them was on this mountain. One mountain with a lot of yearning, thinking and praying to one place, and that's the Temple Mountain, Mount Moriah. 1967, we connected Jerusalem again, and the paratroopers stormed through Zion Gate into the Jewish quarter. So I want you to join me. We're going to go down the steps through Zion Gate, and the next place where I'll meet you will be in the center of the Jewish quarter. Join us.
Great, it's loading! Yoni, do you want to play? Yoni? I'm starting! Wow, cool! I've never reached this level before. Let's check it out. Maybe there's something here? So, what exactly are we looking for?
You don't know what we're looking for?
A treasure?
Almost.
A figamon?
Absolutely. What else is there to look for on Pesach?
Maybe some food that doesn't taste like cardboard?
Why? I actually like matzah. I eat it all year round.
Somehow I can believe that.
Hey, That's my grandfather.
So let's save it for him. I'm crazy about vintage.
My grandfather takes hiding the Afikoman very seriously. One year, he hid it behind a Brazilian volcano. Another year, in a pirate ship at sea. And one time, he hid it in the dog's mouth.
That sounds logical.
A sea dog in Antarctica.
Okay, so we're searching for the Afikoman.
So, if I were an Afikoman, where would I hide myself?
Let's find out.
What?
Well, do you have an idea?
Tammy, we don't have time for that.
Okay, don't be such a square. Got it?
Tammy.
Hey, what's this?
The Bordeaux Haggadah. I can't believe it.
What's that?
It's a 19th century illustrated Haggadah. The first one printed in France. What is it doing here? It's supposed to be in the museum. Even the bookmark is cool.
That's not a bookmark. It's a matzah.
Yummy.
A map of Jerusalem? Why would French Jews from 200 years ago need a map of Jerusalem in their Haggadah?
That's the hint.
So the Afikoman is somewhere in Jerusalem. That narrows it down.
Not just anywhere. Look,
Isn't that the temple's menorah?
exactly. And I know just where to find it. At the Temple Institute, in the center of the Jewish quarter of the Old City.
Wow. So this is where people stored all the temple's treasures?
These are not the originals. They are replicas. The people here made them exactly according to the Torah's descriptions.
Wow, they all look so real. Even that woman.
That is a real woman.
How do you know?
This is so lame. I don't even know why Grandpa sent me here.
Yes, and how is Pesach even connected to the temple's vessels?
Moses. After he led the Israelites out of Egypt, which is what we celebrate on Pesach. God commanded him to create the Mishkan and its vessels.
Wow, and I thought it was challenging to clean up my room. But on the other hand, Moses didn't have any homework.
But what about the Afikoman? I must be missing something.
Maybe it is time to look at the world from Grandpa's perspective.
Hey, how did you know?
I'm good at this game.
The Afikoman is a harp?
I don't think so. It must be another hint. Maybe a song?
Maybe someone who plays a harp.
Of course.
What? Who?
Trust me.
Tammy, where am I running to?
You are such a control freak. Relax.
Did you change your mind?
We are here.
King David's tomb. You are a genius.
Do you mind saying that a little louder so that my brother can hear? He doesn't believe it.
Jews have been coming here for 1,500 years to pray at King David's tomb on Mount Zion. At times, the local rulers forbade Jews from entering Jerusalem, and this was the closest they could get to the Western Wall and the Temple Mount.
So David is buried here?
Him and no other. David, who slays the mighty Goliath and saves the Israelites from the Philistines. David, the author of Psalms. David, who determines Jerusalem would be the capital city of his kingdom.
Let's see what the next clue is. There it is! Wow, it doesn't look like a house.
It's definitely not a house, Tammy. It is a synagogue, the Hurva synagogue. Hurva in Hebrew means ruin.
It doesn't look destroyed to me.
Today it doesn't look like ruins, but it did before. Twice, actually.
I don't understand.
This synagogue was first built in the 1700s, and the Ottomans destroyed it. It was rebuilt, and the Jordanians destroyed it. It was rebuilt again.
And once again, it got destroyed. I get it.
No, actually, this time it lasted. It was in 2010. It was renovated to look exactly as it did in the past.
Wow, incredible.
In the year 1700, many Ashkenazi Jews arrived in Jerusalem. They built their homes and a synagogue, but they were unable to pay back the loans for the synagogue. So the ruling Ottomans chased them out of Jerusalem and destroyed the synagogue. In the 1800s, Moses Montefiore received permission to complete the building. Baron Rothschild donated the funds, and this magnificent synagogue was built. But the Jews continued to call it the Hurva Synagogue. Lions?
Great meeting ya. Bye.
Relax, Tammy. That's the clue. Lions. Where are there lions in Jerusalem? The Lion's Gate.
Benny, are you okay?
Yes. Sure, I'm just allergic to gates.
Benny?
It's not just any gate, Tammy. The paratroopers entered the old city through this gate during the 1967 Six-Day War. They fought their way through the gate and liberated the old city. And that's how it once again became part of the Jewish capital after 2,000 years.
That's really one heck of a miracle, but you know what sort of miracle would really be helpful right now? One that would help us in finding the Afikoman.
I already found it.
Really?
Now everything's crystal clear. In every generation, each person should see themselves as though they personally left Egypt. That's what it says in the Haggadah. And that's what Grandpa wanted to teach me. The exodus from Egypt transformed us into a people. And that's why Jews around the world read the Haggadah. Eat matzah and search for the Afikoman. We are one big family. Moses freed us from the Egyptian slavery. David saved us from the Philistines. And Rothschild freed the Jews from their financial debts. And the paratroopers liberated Jerusalem. We are all part of this story. And in all generations, all of the people of Israel wish to be free and reach the place that is the most important to us, Jerusalem. Jerusalem. Leshana Haba'ah Berushalayim Habnya.
Is it? Hi, we're standing in the center of the Jewish quarter. If you look around with our cameraman, you can see the Hurva synagogue just above us and the buildings. And most of these buildings were renewed after the Six-Day War. And I actually had a Bar Mitzvah family. And when I guided them over here, the grandmother stopped me and she said to me, Ishai, I remember. I asked her, what did you remember? She told me, I remember us coming after the Six-Day War. She was younger, of course, coming into the old city, into the Jewish quarter, and she started to cry. And I asked her, why did you cry? So she answered that everything was demolished by the Jordanians 19 years beforehand. One group that comes in with a big smile from ear to ear are the archaeologists, because if everything is destroyed, you can actually dig the city up after 2,000 years. So we're going to go with the archaeologists down, and we're actually going to go 24 steps down and go back in time 1600 years to the main street of Jerusalem that is just beneath us. Follow me, let's go down together. You can start seeing the shops of the streets over here. We have here the beautiful columns that were found on the floor and were picked up by the archaeologists. And I'm standing right now on the main street. This is the place where the carriages, the horses used to run from south to north, from Zion Gate today to Damascus Gate on the other side. And the columns over here were built on the same way on the other side of the street. Today you have the palm trees symbolizing the other side of the street, the eastern side of the street, and you can imagine how wide the place was. Going up to the sidewalk and just looking over here, you can see the different shops that were over here. One arch, second arch, and etc., a line of shops that were standing over here. So usually, probably they sold what we sell today, shawarma, falafel maybe, or different things. I'm laughing, of course, but there was food and other stuff that people used to buy. But the big question is, who used to buy and who built this street? So this was built by the Byzantines, but it's a continuance of a Roman street that was built by this guy. The statue was found up north Israel. Today it's standing in the Israeli Museum. And this is Adrian. And Adrian, when he comes to Jerusalem, it's 60 years after the Second Temple is already destroyed. And in the beginning, Jews look upon him and they're happy because they see him building up the city. But what they see really fast is that he's not just building a Roman city, he's also destroying what's ever left from the Second Temple. And if they speak about him in Rome like as a great Caesar, in our text, in the Jewish text, this is a hated person because he basically destroyed Jerusalem. And he was also very smart. He didn't just destroy Jerusalem, he also kicked the Jews out of the city and did something that continues with us up to today. He changed the name of the area around us and also the name of the city. Instead of calling the area Judea, he calls it Philistine. And that name continues with us up to today, up to the declaration of the State of Israel. And the name of Jerusalem was changed into his personal name, Ilya Capitolina. And basically when we're standing today on this street, we're standing those days on a street that was a street without any Jews. Jerusalem doesn't look like Jerusalem, and it's not called as Jerusalem. Now, today we have Twitter that is used by the different presidents in the world. Those days they had coins, and to speak with the people, they used the coins. It was written here, Judea Capta, but 95% of the people couldn't read. So they have this kind of drawing. You have the palm tree that symbolizes the land of Israel. We're close to the desert. And you have a warrior standing, showing how he conquered the land and conquered the Jewish people that are here in the drawing as a woman that is sitting on the ground, weeping and crying. The Jews, of course, see this. They're very upset, and they go out on a rebellion called the Bar Kokhba rebellion. This happens 60 years after the destruction of the Second Temple. They wish to see the Third Temple rebuilt, and they rebel against the Romans. You can see their coins. You can see the entrance to the temple that is destroyed, and in ancient Hebrew it's written Legeulat Yerushalayim, to the redemption of Jerusalem. And these two coins are basically fighting against each other, the Romans against the Jews. In the beginning the Jews win, but the end of this story is kind of the Holocaust of those days. And then we go out to the diaspora, and Jews are kicked out of the land all around the world. Jerusalem isn't called Jerusalem, but it's still in the mind and the dreams of Jerusalem that are spread all around the world. When Jerusalem is rebuilt, 1948, 10 years later, Ben-Gurion, the first Prime Minister, and his friends want to celebrate the rebuilt state of Israel and the rebuilt capital of Israel, Jerusalem. And they take out this beautiful medal. What you can see over here is that this was made Asor Lechorut Israel, meaning 10 years after the beginning of Israel. And we have the same palm tree in the center, but instead of a warrior, you have a woman that is holding her child. And instead of a woman crying, you have someone planting a tree, basically saying, our roots are connected to our past. When we look out to our past, we also remember it, but we also try and live it again, hopefully passing on the story to our kids and grandchildren over the years. The same story as Pesach and every other holidays we have. We have history, but we also have a memory. We can see the stories from the past, but try and connect them to our present time and see how we can learn out of them to our own personal life. From this lower part of the city, we're going to climb up the steps and go to the highest part of the city and stand on top of the shops of the market and see the mountains around us. Join me.
The Pesach Haggadah tells the story of the Exodus from Egypt and has accompanied us for generations at our Seder nights. Aviram Paz has a collection of rare Haggadahs from the historical times of the establishment of the State of Israel. These Haggadahs tell us unique stories about that generation and their aspiration for national freedom in the land of Israel. The Haggadah of the Undercover Brigade in the British Army, hand-drawn using watercolors. The Four Sons. This is also Ben Gurion. The wise son, the wicked son, the simple son. My name is Aviram Paz. I was born here in Mishmar HaEmek. I have been collecting Haggadahs for about 35 years. Here are Pesach Haggadahs, mostly traditional, all different kinds, from orphanages. We're talking about thousands of Haggadahs, but the focus is Haggadahs that were produced for the Jewish Legion, the refugees, displaced persons. This is Haggadah from Ben Shemen, 1948, during the siege. There was non-stop shooting from the surrounding villages. They didn't have Haggadahs, wine, matzah. They decided that they were going to write their own Haggadah. This Haggadah was written due to the shortage of Haggadahs on the Ben Shemen army base. And the Haggadah serves as a memento from that special Seder night. What is interesting is that on the back of that Haggadah, they added information about the clashes between the Arabs and Jews of those same days that took place in the days of war in the battles of 1948. What was happening in the Galilee, the convoys that were ascending, the Auster autocrat plane managed to land at the last minute. It was a brave operation carried out under fire, and this Haggadah serves as a memento. The pilot, Zvi Zivel, received the Hero of Israel award later. Sadly, he was killed a few months later while battling in the south. This Haggadah shows the strong desire to celebrate the Jewish holidays, even in challenging times and even under siege. Here are a few stenciled pages that tell us so much. Their Haggadahs are different. They essentially created their own story. They viewed themselves as a link in the chain of then and now. They are experiencing the exodus from Egypt in their times. This is the Palmach Haggadah. Though the storm may rage around us, ever ready to fulfill a command, the Palmach flag in the sky. They simply created their own story with their own texts and their own drawings. This Haggadah is called the Haggadah of Freedom. By communists, they added a picture of Stalin. It's incredible. I was always drawn to the subject of art, Jewish graphics. And there are the differences seen in the reflections of different time periods in the Haggadahs. The Pesach Haggadah provided a stage for creativity. This is Unit 178's Haggadah. It is a very, very rare Haggadah that is written entirely on the back of telegrams. Telegrafi dello Stato. They found a way under impossible conditions. Refugees, displaced persons, a woman raising her hands. Here's a description of their Seder, a soldier's Seder. In a barrack, a kind of tent, the exodus from Egypt, then and now. Worlds open up before you through the things that you love. I learned the history thoroughly. Seder night in the Theresienstadt ghetto. A few people gathered in a barrack. They held a Seder night using this Haggadah. What is special about it is that this is a letter from Nava Shan. The letter remains as a testament. When we see those enlisted in the British Army from the period of the Holocaust and after it, displaced people, immigrants, and the immigration to Israel, in the Haggadahs, we can reveal a lesser-known story. This is Haggadah which somehow, despite all the challenges, was sent to the people who were under siege in Jerusalem. The religious service of the Haggadah, Rav Goren at the beginning of his career adds, "To all of our brothers and sisters serving in the security services, sending you a blessing for the Festival of Freedom." This festival that symbolizes our exodus from darkness to light, from bondage to redemption, should serve as a source of encouragement, strength, hope, and faith, that the Rock of Israel who redeemed us on the day that we left Egypt will perform wonders for us, and we will merit speedily and in our days to see the ingathering of our exiles and the resurrection of Israel in our redeemed land.
Hi, welcome to the top of the buildings of the city. Basically, we're standing above the market of the Muslim quarter, cutting the city from Jaffa Gate behind us to the Temple Mount behind me, just in front of you. And if we look just above the Temple Mount, you'll see Mount of Olives. Just ahead of us, you can see the Russian church on the peak of the mountain. And if we go left or north, you can see the German church. And right on the left, the big building over there with the two red lights is the Hebrew University, what's called in Hebrew Har HaTzofim. And on that mountain we have an ancient story dating back to the days of the Second Temple. Before speaking about that story, I'm just going to take you back to a song that everyone knows. The very most known song of Jerusalem, Yerushalayim Shel Zahav, Jerusalem made out of gold. And when you ask yourself, from where did Naomi Shemer, that wrote the song, from where did she take the phrase of Yerushalayim Shel Zahav, the answer isn't the Dome of the Rock behind us. The Dome of the Rock is a very important place. That's the dome that is standing on Mount of Moriah. That's the place where the binding of Isaac was, Akedat Yitzchak, the first temple, the second temple. But the Golden Dome today was donated by the Jordanians, and when Naomi Shemer is writing the song, she writes it 2 weeks before the Six-Day War, and this is a song of crying and yearning, dreaming about a city that you can't reach. So from where is the phrase? And this takes us back to Har HaTzofim, Mount of Scopus. And years back in time, we read about the story of Rabbi Akiva coming here with another few other rabbis, and they're looking from that mountain to the temple that is destroyed and seeing a fox coming out of the Holy of Holies. And the rabbis start to cry. How does a fox come out of the most holiest site for Judaism? And Rabbi Akiva was kind of laughing, and they asked him, "Why are you laughing? How can you laugh when you see something like this?" And he answered, there's two prophecies. One says that the temple will be destroyed, and the other says that the temple will be rebuilt. Jerusalem will be rebuilt, and kids can play in the streets of Jerusalem. And when I see the temple destroyed, I know for sure that something will change in history and we'll see Jerusalem rebuilt again. So Rabbi Akiva was basically a rabbi that could look at one point of history and see another different story ahead of him. He himself was killed by the Romans. Going back to the beginning of Rabbi Akiva, he didn't start as a rabbi. He studied as a young shepherd here in Jerusalem, and he wants to marry the daughter of Kalba Savoa, the rich man of Jerusalem. And he kicks them out of his house. They don't have any money. And when Akiva, the young Akiva, looks on his wife Rachel, he promises her that one day, when they'll be rich, he will buy her a very beautiful jewelry that was given to the women of Jerusalem called Yerushalayim Shel Zahav. Basically, the city of Jerusalem made out of gold that they used to put on their heads. And this phrase, Yerushalayim Shel Zahav, is basically another idea of this young Akiva looking on one of his lower parts of his life without any money and seeing a different way of living when in years to come he'll be a very big rabbi with a lot of money. Going back to Jerusalem, we had a lot of parts in the history of Jerusalem when we didn't have anything. We just had a dream. No one could have come over here, no one could have gone up to the Temple Mount. This place was out of reach. But over the years, we always thought about the story that at the end of this darkness, we have some light. 1967, the war breaks out down south in Egypt. The paratroopers are brought up to Jerusalem, and after 2 days and a bit, we find beautiful picture of the paratroopers with their commander Motagol sitting on Mount of Olives just in front of us. And you can see in the picture the Dome of the Rock just in front of Motagol. He takes the radio into his hands and says a very known phrase, a very known command that he said to his soldiers. To my soldiers, we're standing on the peak of the mountain looking upon the Temple Mount, the same mountain the Jews were yearning and thinking about for many years, and we're going to be the first to enter the mountain. He finishes his saying, they go down the mountain, and after half an hour they find themselves next to the Temple Mount, crying into the radio, Har HaBayit is in our hands, the Temple Mount is in our hands, changing the history of the Jewish people, changing the history of the State of Israel. Coming back to our story, Pesach is basically a holiday when we tell stories. And the question is, where do we want to start our story? Do we want to start a story when we were born, when our grandparents were born, or maybe go back to the days of Herzl, maybe go back to the days of the Second Temple, First Temple, Abraham coming here with his son for Haggadah Yitzchak, the binding of Isaac. Where we begin the stories and who are the heroes of the stories is our choice. And the way we say the story, do we stay in the darkness, or do we open up the Geulah, the light, and think about the redemption of Jerusalem, the ability to come here today, buy a falafel with a few shekels and go down to the Kotel, a dream that for years people used to dream about and pray about, and we can actually live. How do we tell that story to our kids today? I hope you enjoyed the tour, and as we finish Leil HaSeder, I'll finish with the same phrase, L'shana haba'a b'Yerushalayim habnuya. We have a beautiful city today, we have a beautiful Jerusalem. Something is still missing, and that's the temple and the redemption of everyone coming back to the land of Israel. So hopefully we'll also see you next year here in Jerusalem. I'll invite Eve to end the tour with a few ideas of how to teach the kids about the story. Eve?
Thank you so much, Yishai, and thank you to everyone that's helped with the tour, Danielle and Kamutal and Adi from Olam Shalem and all the wonderful staff that have organized all of these tours. I hope you really enjoyed the tour. I myself learned so much, and actually made me think as an Olah Chadasha is that one year I did say at our Pesach Seder B'Shana Haba'a B'Yerushalayim, and there I was the next year living in Israel. So if you will it is no dream. And I wanted to also say how special it is standing here to feel the beautiful atmosphere in Jerusalem leading up to Pesach. So just for you guys to be able to bring that specialness into your classroom, Olam Shalem have come up with an amazing lesson plan for Pesach. We not only have a new lesson plan, but we also have the old lessons from the year before that you can use within your classrooms. Very interactive, very fun, lots of resources that you can just download and print. Basically what I like to call a lesson in a box, all ready to go and to engage your students and give them the link that they can feel that they are part of the heritage and it's part of their history, and they can reach out and feel part of Jerusalem, and it becomes part of their heritage. So one of the lessons, and this is actually, excuse the way it's presented here, but just so that you can see, one of the lessons for the more senior children in the older years, can you see? This is about all different Haggadot from all different times, from all different places around the world, and how people have used illustrations and pictures to show their link to Jerusalem, that yearning for Zion. And so your students will be able to look at all the pictures and answer questions on all the different illustrations, different places, different times. We have questions related to that, so it's interactive and they can all be part of that learning. We also have children can actually do this arts and crafts. I haven't seen it done before. Just remembering this will need to be printed on A3 paper, and it's a fold and stick. firstly color in and fold and stick so that they can bring their own unique tray for matzah onto the Pesach table. So that's very special that they can bring to their Seder, their own Seder. And then also we have a game here that is used for all the different age groups. That's a lot of fun, and it's called What Am I? All the different mitzvot of Pesach, kind of like the game that you would have played as a youngster, Who Am I? With all different clues, and then the children have to guess what am I, what mitzvah is it, and then they have cards that they match that up with. So the lessons should be up very soon, hopefully, as well as I hope you enjoy the 2 movies that Olam Shalem have made. They're great for all ages and can be used in the classroom or even as part of informal education. So please check out the website soon. I'll let you know when everything is up and I'll send you the links. Thanks so much for joining us, and B'Shana Abba B'Yerushalayim.